Good morning, and welcome to our Industry Day here at the University of Michigan. I'm Jeff Chattis, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer here at the U of M, and we'd like to start by introducing the rest of the folks that will be presenting today.
Good morning, Lori McCauley, Provost and Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs.
And good morning, I'm John Augustine, Managing Director at Barclays.
Thanks to you both. We also have, as part of this project, our project advisors. That includes, as you just heard, Barclays Capital. We also have Ernst & Young Infrastructure Advisors, Meyer Brown, and Lee and Elliott. Meyer Brown is a legal advisor, and Lee and Elliott is our technical advisor. And over the next hour, we want to share with you and welcome you to our discussion around a very exciting project here at the University of Michigan. And we wanted to host this event today to allow all of you to gauge your interest in the opportunity, to explain why we think it is of significant benefit to the university, and to share information about the upcoming RFQ and procurement process. So if we go to the next slide, we'll walk through the agenda for today. So first I'll provide, with Provost McCauley, an overview of the University of Michigan. We'll then have a discussion on the Campus Connector project. We'll then turn to our procurement process and teaming guidelines, and then have a preliminary timeline and additional information. And finally, we'll have some time for Q&A regarding the procurement process. So let me turn to U of M. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the University of Michigan. We are one of the largest and preeminent public universities in the country. We have over 66,000 students across 3 locations. Our main campus is in Ann Arbor, 43 miles west of Detroit. We also have campuses in Dearborn and Flint. We are ranked number 3 in U.S. News and World Report, and we also run a large hospital system. Our endowment is the largest, 9th largest in the country in terms of value. And I think importantly, this last bullet point here, we are governed through a constitutional autonomy. So our board is governed by regents. They are elected by the people of the state of Michigan, and they ultimately have the authority to make decisions about this project and anything else related to running the university, which makes us a little bit different. There are a few universities in Michigan that are like this, but it's a little different than models that many of you may have seen elsewhere. So our board will be actively involved in these discussions. And at the bottom, just a few snapshot items for you. As you can see, we have 19 schools and colleges, over 280 degree programs, and the pros will talk about this, but we pride ourselves in excellence across all of these programs. We have an incredibly high graduation rate. Our endowment at the end of last year was $17.9 billion and growing. And our revenues exceeded $12 billion last year. About 60% of that or so is healthcare, and the remainder spread across our academic enterprise and research. We have quite a large research budget. We enjoy a AAA rating, recently reaffirmed by both Moody's and S&P, stable. And we spend in any given year somewhere in excess of $600 million in capital spending. And just in terms of size, you can see we have over 3,000 acres, over 40 million square feet in 630 buildings. So,
okay, yeah, so thanks, Jeff. Really the underpinning of our time together today is around connectivity, and I'll just touch base on a few of the tenets around the need for connectivity. So one of the really underpinning aspects of this is our interdisciplinarity. It's really crucial to our strategic vision and the impact areas that we have come together as a community. We have more than 100 programs that are in the top 10 of their fields. And so how do we continue to excel is through these programs being able to collaborate and integrate and work together. So we have faculty, staff, and students on our North Campus that have expressed a strong desire for connection with Central Campus. And I can say that long before I was provost, I served on an internal review for the College of Engineering. This was about 15 years ago. And the number one thing that they said was that they wanted better connectivity with our central campus. So this is a long-standing interest. It's not something that has just, surfaced over the last couple of years. We also have a very strong focus on student success and all of our students having an opportunity to embrace a sense of belonging, which means that they have ready access to all our student services. And that would be services and support on our North Campus and our Central Campus. Housing continues to be a priority for our campus. We have new housing project going on right now. And the connection between North Campus and Central Campus will really help to ensure adaptability and the ability for our students to engage across our campuses. We have currently more than 30,000 transits per day, mostly students traveling on our bus system between our Central Campus and our North Campus. And we're experiencing challenges as we grow and develop and embrace our aspirations to better be able to connect between our campuses.
Thank you, Lori. And just to talk about the goals, we'll look at some maps in a minute. For those of you that have been to Ann Arbor, we are blessed with a beautiful campus, but it's also a long and narrow campus. It's starting at I-94 with our sports complex, heading down State Street to our what we call our main campus, and then our medical center, and then our North Campus. And as you heard from Provost McCauley, we are moving those 30,000 plus people a day, students, nurses, other employees, in a bus system that's approximately 100 buses, and we are hitting a wall, and we are really finding that the travel time is challenged. And that's incredibly important for a nurse starting for a shift, for a professor teaching a class, and particularly for a student who has limited time between classes. And right now, there are times of day where there are peaks that make it incredibly challenging for our students and others to move. And so we're looking forward to a way that we can improve the quality of life and improve connectivity. I like to say that right now we talk about these distinct campuses, and what we really like to do is talk about an Ann Arbor campus that is easily navigable and allows for great collaboration, moving people, and doing so in a way that is sustainable and looking to the future. So we think it's important. We've looked at the data. That number, 30,000 plus on buses, puts us in a very unique place that requires a creative solution. It allows us to think about the fact that, and I think, Lori, you can confirm this, but our fastest growing degrees are on the North Campus, many of our STEM degrees, and most of our new dorms today are in the central part of Ann Arbor. And that, at this moment, is the place the students choose to live. We have housing in the north. We have a lot of grad students who live up there, but they equally need to come down to do their research, to teach classes. And so it's incredibly important as we look to the future. And then it's important, I believe, to the city of Ann Arbor. We believe it will help reduce cars from the street. It will be a new way of transporting people in the city so that people can get to work, can move back and forth. And I think finally, we hope because of that it will help us achieve our stated goals of hitting carbon neutrality by 2040. So if I go to the next slide, turn it back to Lori.
Yeah, so I think it's important at this point to give you an idea, the underpinning of where our campus is right now, and that is in a process of having delivered a new vision for our campus. And in fact, this has been really the only formal process to develop a vision for our campus that I'm aware of, in contemporary history. You see the vision statement here, and just to highlight some of the aspects of it, to be the defining public university, service to the common good, and you see that disciplinarity or interdisciplinarity, excellence at scale, and the ability for us to embrace and face the greatest challenges facing humanity. Really, what Michigan can do that's distinctly Michigan to have an impact in our world. This Vision 2034 process came about over the past about 18 months. We delivered the vision in April. It was the most inclusive process I have experienced on our campus. We had over 25,000 people providing comment, and what we came forward with is basically 4 core impact areas. You see the first 2 here: climate action, sustainability, and environmental justice. We have noted expertise in these areas across many of our schools and colleges. And in the context of this connector, we want to embrace a more sustainable transportation option on our campus. In the impact area, democracy, civic, and global engagement, our campus being able to deliver and to embrace, inculcate the importance of civic engagement. And just as an example, our students have been really motivated and encouraged to get out to vote. We have voting stations on our campus. A transit station, a new transit operation could really help to facilitate this, as well as just engagement across our campuses in this space. The other 2, a life-changing education, providing accessibility to education for all our students. And I think transportation is a huge piece of this as well, allowing them to be able to move between our 2 campuses really helps them to feel more a sense of belonging, because they're not challenged as much at trying to find transportation or waiting and spending a lot of time trying to do transit between campuses. And then the 4th, human health and well-being. Clearly, the well-being of our student population and our faculty and staff is a high priority, and we know just the frustrations with transportation can challenge that, but as well that we have a major health system on our central campus, and we have expanded building of a new patient tower. So the ability for patients to get easier access into campus from the outlying areas, Ann Arbor and beyond, would be really beneficial and impactful. So the connector represents really a commitment to this vision. The opportunities around purpose-driven education and the student experience, having a smoother ability to have transportation just will allow and encourage them to spend more time on the things that they're here for, and that is to launch their careers. Faculty and staff engagement, we've heard just again and again from our faculty and staff challenges around parking, that a new transportation system would help us be able to tackle. And then innovation partnerships and economic development. A new transportation system will allow us huge and new opportunities to engage with our local communities outside of campus and to bring them in for seminars, cultural events, as well as opportunities for economic development and partnerships across our enterprise with the external communities.
Thanks, Lori. What I'll add to that, by the way, over the last year, Lori and I have had a chance, the provost and I, to meet with various groups. So we met with the deans, and we had unanimous agreement about the need for a connector. Martino Harmon, who's not with us today, the head of student affairs, and I met with the student assembly. They passed a unanimous resolution in support of the connector. I will tell you, if any of those you know higher ed, to have unanimity in anything is an amazing thing, and we're sharing that with you because it really is the entire campus community that is supportive of this effort. So I want to turn for a minute to something else that President Ono asked Lori and I and our fellow Executive Vice President, Dr. Runge, who runs the health system, to coordinate, which is in conjunction with the vision you just heard about, which is our Campus Plan 2050, we call it, which is how we will look at the buildings across our campus over the next 25 years. And this, again, believe it or not, is the first time we've had a plan for the entire Ann Arbor campus that looks at all parts of the campus. It's, as I said, a 25-year plan, and it looks at everything from housing to research to amenities to ADA to teaching spaces, and it's a comprehensive way that we can start identifying different parts of the campus and what needs to take place. And so things like pathways and walkways and transitways, all incredibly important. So I want to spend a few minutes to show you. This will be coming out this fall, but it's not changing here. There we go. But I wanted to share a few maps with you and talk about what key themes have emerged. Just like we had multiple engagements for the vision, we also have had these same engagements across our different constituencies over the last year. And one of the themes that emerges again and again and again is connectivity or transit. So this is the map to show you our campus. As I mentioned to you, it's long and thin. I'll go through this in a minute, but it starts down at the bottom with the sports complex. The blue lines here, by the way, are existing busways. You then have in the middle the central campus, the oldest part of the campus, then down towards the river, the medical center, and then crossing the river and then heading up to the north campus, which you can see is quite large in terms of space. And then after the north campus, it carries on past US 23, which is a major artery, to our east medical complex, which is both clinical and administrative. And so this creates a particular challenge for connectivity. And you'll see in here there is a proposed route for the connector. And I'll show you a bit more of that in a minute, but it essentially starts in the central campus. It heads up from the central campus towards the medical center, across the river, up to North Campus, stops where our students and where our faculty teach right now, will then carry on to a proposed new hotel conference center, and then across to an innovation district that the provost talked about. And finally, we're proposed having it end at a new intramural sports facility with 6,000 students. We need a large space. We have scattered spaces for students. And again, the students are very supportive of taking the connector up to this space where they can then compete and have recreational opportunities. And we'd welcome your thoughts as we go through the process and what it might look like to carry this on to our East Medical Complex, which is really where they have growth over the next 25 to 50 years for clinical care. So that's one topic that has come up. The next slide is just to show you our central campus. So one thing you'll observe here, this is, again, as I mentioned, the oldest part of the campus. It has the President's House. It has many of our traditional colleges, the LS&A, Literature, Science, and the Arts, and a number of other schools. But what I'd point out to you here, so on the upper right is the Med Center. We'll look at that in a minute. Down to the left is the central campus. Anything in dark blue is a space for building. And before we get too excited, the blue space down below to the left is already committed to the dorms that Lori talked about, the up to 4,500 new beds. So I think what you'll see is we have a critical mass here, but not a lot of space to expand. If you then turn to the medical campus, there are some opportunities here. Some of this is already underway, as you heard, the pavilion, building new childcare, but there's not massive space for growth. And you'll see this gold line here. There's a gold circle in the lower right. That's the first stop of the connector. So we'll have left the central campus, gone around a few curves, and end up right outside our hospitals. And there are some blue spaces there for further research and clinical expansion. To the right there then is our children's and women's hospitals. They are there. And so our staff will be able to park up at North Campus. We're talking about adding 4,000 plus new spaces where people can drive in. Not everyone lives in Ann Arbor. In fact, many don't. We have looked extensively at where people commute from, and they'll be able to park. We'll have childcare up there. We'll have grocery stores, you name it. People can pick up supplies, hop on this thing, and be down to work in a matter of minutes in a safe and reliable way. So then if you look to the right here at the end of the medical campus, the station, it then heads down and cuts just the edge of our arboretum, which is a very large open space to the right of this picture. And if I turn here, you'll see it in fuller detail. It will cross the river. And so one of the challenges that you'll want to talk about is how do we cross the river, what elevation, what type of bridge, We'll be very curious to hear your thoughts on that. But it will then cut over where some of our existing intramural fields are. And it actually crosses, by the way, the Amtrak track. And so that's an interesting point for the future of transport in the city of Ann Arbor. And then it heads up to North Campus. And its first stop is that first gold stop. That's called Pierpont Commons. That's at the edge of the music school on the left. To the south is architecture and arts. And then to the north, the largest school up there is the engineering school. And then our new building for our school for information science. And then it will go up to the right, and you can see the gold line heading up towards Plymouth Road. There's a stop up there, and then to the right, as I mentioned, near the new Hotel Conference Center, and then crossing over what Huron Parkway, a major artery, into the new innovation zone, and then finally ending at that large green space, which would be the intramural space. What I hope you notice on this page is there's lots of dark blue. There is a lot of space for growth and for development. And so when the provost, Dr. Runge and I meet, and we meet with deans and other leaders, we are looking at this space and saying, this is the future. This is the future of our growth. It'll be housing. We're looking at multiple uses. There are a couple of miles of frontage on one of the busiest streets in Ann Arbor, Plymouth Road, that are undeveloped at this point and create huge opportunities. So we have identified in this campus plan that we will look at these different zones in campus and think about different uses. And we're particularly excited to think about how the connector will activate this space. So think, for example, of folks staying at the Hotel Conference Center and then coming downtown for events and then being able to predictably and safely get back and forth. They don't need to bring a car. We'll also then be looking at pathways. As I mentioned, our students, our faculty have asked us to take a very serious look at pathways and trailways for walking, for biking, and we'll look at how this connector path fits with added ability for folks to walk or bike between the two campuses. So this gives you a pretty good feel of where the connector will go and how those stops will activate different parts of that part of campus. So with that, we will turn it over for a discussion of the connector. So, project goals. When it comes to the project goals, we're looking for something that is service proven, fit for environment, and reliable. We also need to minimize cost and the operational and financial risks for the university, and we look for alignment with our commitments to sustainability and climate action. And I want to just talk about some of these other goals. So one is that we want this to be easy to expand. My speech says, if we continue to grow, I'll modify that and say, as we continue to grow. And when we are just growing every year, you've seen our budgets. And so we want to be able to say, can we add another station? Can we work with the city over time? Are there other needs with athletics growing, for example? So that's really important. We want it to be aesthetically compatible with our campus. So we'll look to thinking about the stations as statements as well. And how do they fit into our campus? We've had the chance to see some of these in other parts of the world, and we've been very impressed by how the stations become an important part of the campus. We'll also want to think about the compliance with the project schedule. We know these are complicated, and we know that they take time, but we want to understand how we work together to deliver a successful project. We like the idea of on time and on budget, and that will be important to us, and I'm sure to all of you. And then more importantly for us, and I hope for you, we are very focused here at University of Michigan on safety. We pride ourselves in a culture of working through projects in the safest possible way and minimizing disruption. We recognize in a campus like this that there will be challenges, but those will be incredibly important features of the connector project. So here's the project overview. You can see here, this gives you a clearer picture. It will start here in the central campus outside the building we are zooming from called Ruthven. It's our administration building right off of Washtenaw, right on the edge of the central campus. The proposal is the connector leaves here and it heads to the left towards the medical center. You'll notice on here that it looks like there are two pathways because we're going to ask you all to tell us whether it makes sense to follow down Washtenaw, which is wide open, there are no buildings, or whether it makes sense to go down the road to the right on this this map, but it's where there are student dorms across the street. And so we want to hear about both those options. But then we expect, as I mentioned, it will cover the river and go through the stops heading up towards the East Campus. We're talking about a dual lane elevated guideway, 6 passenger stations on the way, and an offline operation, maintenance, and storage facility. I think we've showed it in this map to the upper right because we have a lot of space up there. That's also where we maintain our bus fleet right now. So there's some synergy there that makes sense. You can see here, we've talked about this, but we will have the bus service. It's not going away in any way. It'll actually integrate with and interface with the connector. And if you think about this being the trunk line, we'll then have a number of routes that get people ultimately to their final destination. And in some routes, they'll be serviced just by the bus. You can see here that the alignment contemplates 2, as I mentioned, alternatives. We'd like to hear what you say. And then also, we'd like thoughts on the bridge. At this point, we think that the bridge will be approximately 100 feet high, but we look forward to hearing from the experts on what they think will be possible. We want to minimize disruption to our arboretum. I will just say that up front. We are very proud of our commitment to green space on this campus and to trees and keeping those open spaces available for all of us. So something we'll look forward to hearing from you all on. And I put in the last bullet here that this is not cast in stone at all. This is preliminary. It's based on work done by some of our advisors, but mostly it's to set out a framework for you all to be able to react as we look at this approximately 3.5-mile route. As to the technology, our preferred technology solution at this point is the rubber-tired automated transit system, ATS. We've had a chance to see them around the world. We've taken various groups of academic leaders, medical center leaders, board members, and others. And again, I'll just reiterate that the enthusiasm for the technology is palpable. And some of it has to do with the quiet nature of the rubber tires. We've also been interested in understanding the challenges of operating in a cold environment. We do have winter here, we have snow, we have ice, and we need to make sure that we have robust service during those periods of time. We're expecting to have initial capacity of 4,000 passengers per hour per direction, and we'd like to expand that up to 5,500 in the same way per hour per direction. Steel-wheeled ATS are not expected to be compatible with the geometry and the noise considerations. If you think about going through residential neighborhoods and then hospitals, we've seen these in action, as I said, and we've seen the noise characteristics, and we think they make most sense for us. We also welcome discussion with you. We're also not foreseeing with this length and this topography that a cable-propelled technology would be applicable. So rubber-tired technology is the way we'd like to go. The scope. So we're looking for a partner to provide a full turnkey campus connector under a design, build, operate, and maintain contract. We expect the partner will provide a full turnkey connector to include the operating system, fixed facilities, and that they will also operate and maintain the campus connector. We expect the operating system to include the vehicles, train, control, command and control systems, running surfaces, guidance equipment, and power distribution system. The fixed facilities, including the guideway structure, stations, equipment rooms, and buildings, shall, for the system, central control facility and propulsion power substations. We also would ask the partner be solely responsible for delivering all aspects of the work and integrating the operating system and fixed facilities into a fully functional connector. Just a couple other points. We anticipate assuming responsibility for arranging the project financing and for the long-term maintenance of the fixed facilities after the project. This is why I highlighted the size of our endowment. We have a very strong financial position, and we will look forward to being able to take advantage of that as we work through the project. We would welcome any feedback from respondents during the process in terms of the best ways to achieve this. So I will then pass this over. John, is it to you?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. You know, I think right now, maybe the best thing to do is to well, let's turn to the next slide. You can see we're going to process through with the university a very thoughtful, what we can think is a thoughtful request for qualifications initial process, which is really just you laying out your team and your qualifications, and that'll be coming here in next month. That'll be followed by the move to a request for proposals, which will follow the RFQ, which will be due in September. That'll follow through in the spring of 2025, and then we'll talk about the rest of the process on the next couple of slides. I think it's important to keep in mind that the RFQ process is really designed to give people time to just team up and present their qualifications, and it's looking to be a very straightforward process. But I think I'll turn it over to Tally to expand on this process. Tally, do you want to say something here about page 17, or would you like to proceed on to the next page?
Sally's our
Yeah.
director of
She's our director,
procurement.
and it
Yeah.
looks like she's having some technical.
We're having a little technology challenge, so why don't we go to the next page?
Okay, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Here we
Yay,
go.
good.
Okay, so yeah, they've got me a little trapped from a video standpoint, so we're working through that. But I can certainly talk to this. Do we want to go back a bit and start over?
We're on page
Yeah.
17.
I think we're in a
Sally,
good
which
spot
is
on
the
17.
procurement process. But if there's anything you want to say as the head of procurement at U of M, please reiterate what you think is important and then go from there.
And we can see your video
Oh, yes,
now.
you're in now.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Technology's great when it works, right? Hi, I'm Tally Thrasher. I am the Assistant Vice President and Chief Procurement Officer here for the University of Michigan. We are super excited about this project. So I think that we've already John's done a good job of highlighting what the process might look like. I just might want to give a couple of highlights in addition here. It might be a little redundant, but just to get us back on a little bit on track here. The procurement process will take 3 phases. The first one is a request for qualifications, where that's where we will determine the parties meet the minimum qualifications to partner with us on this project. Those who pass the RFQ process will then proceed to the request for proposals, or the RFP stage. And that's where we'll really get into the detail of the project. And then the ultimate goal of that then will be to have a team selected based on that process to then move forward to the final phase, which is the pre-development agreement, or PDA. After the PDA is finalized, the university does anticipate entering into a long-term project agreement with the final selected team. The RFQ isn't going to go out for another few weeks, and I have a schedule slide here coming up. But the RFQ will provide additional details on each phase of this selection process and the project itself. One thing we want to note, just for awareness purposes, is that we anticipate conducting one-on-one meetings during this process, but right now they are currently slated for the RFP phase. So we move to the next slide. Thank you. So to give a little bit of insight as to what you can expect in the RFQ process, we wanted to highlight the evaluation criteria that will determine if a team is able to move forward to the RFP. We will use a pass-fail approach for this RFQ, and the evaluation criteria includes evaluations of the financial capacity, technical experience, rolling stock experience and innovation, operations and maintenance, as well as licensing and certifications. These criteria will be finalized by RFQ issuance, and complete details on pass-fail requirements will be included in the RFQ file you will receive at the start of the process. So let's talk a little bit about the teams. Only prospective respondents capable of completing this project in its entirety are eligible to be considered. On this slide are several key pieces of information from the RFQ file regarding guidelines for the formation of the team. I'm not going to read all these details to you, as you will receive, we will be sharing these materials after, but I do want to hit some key highlights. The first is that the RFQ will ask that teams submit a response as a complete team. This includes what we're calling key team members. Key team members include a lead developer, a lead designer, a lead contractor, an operating system and rolling stock provider, and an O&M contractor. Of these key team members, a company can serve multiple roles on the same team. However, key team members are not permitted to be on more than one respondent team. The RFQ will provide additional information. However, we are hoping that you can use this advanced insight to begin formation of your teams. So when the RFQ is released later this month, your team is ready to begin the process. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about some additional information. So as previously mentioned, we anticipate the RFQ coming out in the next few weeks. Then the responses will be due back in September. From there, the university will complete our evaluations and request and release a short list of teams tentatively in October or November of this calendar year. Immediately following, the RFP will be issued to these shortlisted teams. The RFP process will include one-on-one meetings and end with a partner selection in the spring of 2025. This schedule is still being developed and will be a more complete schedule will be provided when the RFQ is issued. Also, this schedule is subject to change based upon the university's need. So I just want to highlight some additional information that would be helpful. And this is just more about housekeeping items for the RFQ. The RFQ will be issued using our procurement portal, and the named solicitation managers are Susie Eckert and Karen Ellis, both members of the U of M Procurement Services team. Christian Kincaid will serve as your contact to Barclays Capital. Once the RFQ is issued, any communication with university personnel other than the named solicitation managers and contacts is strictly prohibited. This ensures we are able to keep a fair process through the RFQ. Unfortunately, if you violate this rule, it may result in your disqualification. In the coming days, the university will be preparing and distributing the attendee list from today's call with all of those who attended in order to support the formation of your teams. Please use this opportunity to network and build connections in preparation for the RFQ in the coming weeks. While registering for the event, if you ask for your information to be excluded, your information will not be shared. So today we covered the project at a very high level. Many items are still being discussed internally. Details shared today are subject to change. So please refer to the language in the RFQ once it's released for complete project information. Additional instructions about how to access the RFQ are in our procurement services portal, and how to submit questions about the RFQ will be sent to your teams via email by Susie and Karen closer to the RFQ date. We have now allotted some time for a brief Q&A session, and we will do our best to answer your questions live. However, verbal answers provided today are not considered binding, and we will follow up with written responses in the portal that you will have access to once the event is live. So with that, I just want to thank you everyone for joining us today and sharing in our excitement. And now we'll start the Q&A session.
Callie, I'm so glad we were able to get you live and in color. So that was really great. We have a number, in our community here virtually of all those folks that have joined us. We already have a number of questions. So why don't I just jump to it and Tally, I think the first ones are for you and your team. The first one is, will the Industry Day materials be made available to attendees after the event?
Yes, absolutely. We'll be sharing these with the attendees. For those that have been here and those that request materials later on, they'll also be for reference in the RFQ.
Great. The second question that came through is, how will interested parties be made aware when the RFQ is live?
Yeah, interested parties will receive an email invitation from the solicitation managers, Susie and Karen, both here ready to help, which is with a direct link to the event. That will be posted publicly on the U of M sourcing website. For additional information, you can also review the supplier basics in advance, and that's on procurement.umich.edu. It's really easy to Google procurement UMich, comes right up.
Perfect. And another one, how many shortlisted respondents from the RFQ are expected to be advanced to the RFP phase? Is there a set number, or how does that going to work?
Nope, we have no set expectations of how many respondents will advance. All qualified respondent teams will advance to the RFP. Great.
Okay. And the next one is, do you expect to conduct interviews, or does the university expect to conduct interviews as part of the RFQ evaluation process?
As of right now, we intend to hold discussions following the RFQ process down selection and then conduct formal interviews during the RFP stage. But that could be subject to change.
Very helpful. Very helpful. Could you, and I think you addressed it, but I understand the nature of the next question is, could you comment further on the evaluation criteria for the RFQ?
Yeah, so more information will be provided in the RFQ document when it's released, but at a high level, this is just meeting minimum requirements. So what our minimum requirements are in our evaluation criteria, it encompasses financial security, technical experience, rolling stock experience and innovation, operations and maintenance experience, and then licensing and certifications.
Okay, good. This next question I think is pretty straightforward. Will there be an opportunity for interested parties to visit campus?
So respondents can have access to visit the sites independently. A formal site visit is still under consideration during the RFP phase. So once we know that, that will also be pushed out through communications through the procurement team.
Great. We've got a couple of other questions that have come in that I think that meet the general procurement nature, but are also, I think, helpful and would be useful. And Jeff, perhaps this is appropriate for you. Are you open to emerging technologies in the RFQ process?
Yeah, I mean, we'll take a look at anything at this phase. As you heard Tally say, it has to meet that question of technology, but for sure, we're looking for ideas as we go forward here.
Yeah, great, good. Another question that came in, I think Provost McCauley, if you could address this. It gets at this, I think it's getting more at the comments you made about interdisciplinary research and how distinctive that is about Michigan. And the question is, since that's one of the university's distinctive competencies, how do you see the connector potentially enhancing that important function?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are a large R1 university, research intensive. Our research expenditures are $1.8 billion per year. It's something we take great pride in, and it's something that we are committed to expanding as I described these 4 core impact areas. So just to give you a couple examples, we have a phenomenal life sciences institute here on Central Campus that has world-renowned expertise in cryo-electron microscopy. Well, there's investigators on North Campus in physics and other areas of engineering that need and want and benefit from this resource. So, their labs going back and forth to access these resources and oftentimes carrying really vulnerable samples a quick transport is critical. The other example, probably I think the newest building on our campus that's in function is our robotics building up on North Campus, which is incredibly interdisciplinary itself and has faculty from all across campus. So many faculty in kinesiology who are on Central Campus want access to the robotics building and their students and lab teams. So there's already a lot, and we want more.
Yeah, those are really great examples. I mean, it is narrow and long, and it's just going to be transformative to be able to count on it, time to go between.
And we hear it anecdotally all the time.
Yeah.
Gee, if there were a way to be sure I could get up to North Campus without having to drive or get stuck in traffic, I would be more likely to go up there.
Yeah, it's convenience, but it's also a necessity when you're working with materials and samples that need to be maintained under certain conditions.
Right. It's interesting how the hospitals are kind of right in the middle. And that's also there's a couple of questions here around, is this being built for hospital staff and faculty and employees?
Yes.
And I'm sure that's
and patients.
And patients and visitors and families and the myriad of people that are on our campus in any given day.
Right.
With the building and expansion of our medical campus, there's just going to be more and more traffic into Central Campus.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting question that came up. Like, will the connector be open to the public that has business on campus?
That has to be worked through to figure out other times of day. Its primary uses for our people on campus, but we'll see. But there's so many events where we have the public here.
Yeah, so we have fabulous cultural events for the University Musical Society, the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, and having that ability because we have parking now for the public to come to these events. So.
Including Yo-Yo Ma on June 11th
next week. That's certainly our goal, though, to
Exactly.
make it easy for those to visit campus, even maybe a football game or something. And people may want to park on North Campus, take the connector down, and then it's a great walk or a bus ride to the stadium rather than fighting the traffic, for example.
Really good. A couple of emerging questions are coming in on procurement for Tally and the team. Tally, there's one question. How can we register to the procurement portal? Is there certain steps we need to take?
So Susie or Karen, feel free to jump in, but I believe you can go to our website under supplier basics, and that gives you more detailed, like step-by-step instructions on how to do that.
Great. Jeff, here's an interesting question. Has the university established an estimated budget or affordability limit for this project? Which I think it's kind of early.
Yeah, not yet. We've certainly looked at estimated costs based on other projects, and we've benchmarked, but we think part of the key element of this process, these next two phases, is coming up with a budget to share with the board.
Good. Tally and the team, and I forgot if we covered this, sorry. Will the presentation be shared with attendees? Yes, right? Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Let's see, there was one other one on the public. Has the university made a decision about charging a fare? And is that expected to be part of the selection process, the economics of that?
No, not at this point. Our students do not pay to take nor do our employees to take the buses, and so we'll be looking at a similar model.
Great. Okay, very good. Here's one, and I know this is a difficult one, but it's just hot off the press as we saw. Can the university expand on the level of risk transfer it is looking to achieve? It's a big question.
It's a big question, and it's a process designed to explore how to think about risk transfer. I think it's important. We don't run connectors here at the university. We do a lot of amazing things, but we don't run connectors, and we don't build them either. And so we're looking for, during this process, the qualification and then the proposal process, to explore different ways to share risk. We are blessed to have financial strength and stability that we can deploy, but we also know what we don't know, and so we're looking to experts in the field to share with us through this process what they think is feasible, and then we hope, come up with a win-win solution.
Really good. Great. and I think you touched on this, but I think it's worth perhaps addressing this next question. Did the university complete any ridership studies to inform the basis of its capacity requirements?
Many. Sorry, I laugh. We've been looking at this for a number of years, and we brought in some of the great world experts, and that's what started this. And I hinted at it. We are going to hit capacity with. I'm not a physics major for sure, but with what is feasible given the limited crossings and the limited number of roads between North Campus and Central Campus.
Yeah, I mean that's a right way to think. I agree with that. There's been a ton of work on that.
Yeah.
There is a question about what is the completion date goal, which I know is another. Based on working with the team here, I think it's as soon as we can. But
right.
Next
sure.
week?
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
We have our new pavilion coming online in a year, our new dorms come online in 2 years, our new schools in the North Campus buildings come online. So as soon as possible, that it can be done safely and cost effectively.
Right. There are a few questions that relate to finance, and I think like one is, have you considered the value of private financing or, that whole element? And I think, Jeff, obviously the framework that you've introduced as a base case is the design, build, operate, maintain model. And I think the thing on that, and Jeff obviously expand, but I think that the primary focus of the pyramid is to build on the base case of a design, build, operate, maintain, recognizing that the university will lead on the financing. Now that obviously can take many forms, that university leadership on financing. But I think, Jeff, you said you're open to people's thinking on enhancements.
Correct. And look, again, I'll reiterate, we're blessed with a AAA rating, stable rating, a very large endowment. We run an enterprise that is in the black every year. And so we are not required to have an alternative method to pay for this, but I would be very curious to see what people bring to the table. We very much value creativity. We value innovation. I hope that's not a surprise from what you heard from Provost Macaulay. And so the same thing with financing. If there are creative ideas out there, we'll definitely take a look at them. Very good.
And this is a question for procurement that has come up, Tally and team. The question is, what are the opportunities to meet in person and discuss the merits and solution fit for possible alternatives? And I think, Kelly, you've answered that, but maybe you could reiterate. I thought that was helpful, but maybe reiterate the process.
Yeah, so we're happy to have you visit independently if you'd like to take a walk around campus or kind of get an idea of the scope in real time. We are still evaluating what that might look like and likely be part of the RFP process itself.
Great. Thank you. And here's another question, Jeff, that's come in. And is there any plan to coordinate with the local transit provider, the Ann Arbor Transportation, and the ride folks? And I assume that will be integrated.
Absolutely. And we're in discussions with the city, and it's incredibly important, particularly from a sustainability point of view. We want to do anything we can to work with the city to help get cars off the road. But I think you've heard the numbers, or I could say, that we're moving on our own. But that connectivity will be incredibly important, right?
Excellent. Great. Good. Well, I think this was an excellent process. Thanks everybody for a great presentation from the procurement team, and thank you, Jeff, and thank you, Provost Macaulay, for this really informative process. Recognize that you can submit questions through the procurement portal. Obviously, any questions or any process will be available to everyone if there's the decision to release additional Q&A. So thanks very, very much on behalf of the University of Michigan, and we'll look forward to being in touch.
Thank you all.
Appreciate your interest. And go blue.
Go blue.
Very good.